The storm rolled over the mountains like a living thing, lightning split the night, and thunder echoed through valleys that had not heard a human voice for years. Rain poured in heavy sheets, running down black stone cliffs and rushing into rivers that foamed and swelled with wild fury. In the heart of this storm, high within a mountain hollow, a dragon stirred from uneasy sleep. His eyes, like molten gold, opened slowly and narrowed as he listened. For centuries he had chosen silence and shadows. He had turned away from the world of men because men had betrayed him once long ago, when they hunted his kin until fire faded from the skies and dragon bones turned to dust. Now he lived in solitude. His only companions were stone and storm. Yet tonight something was different. He could feel it, a pulse against the mountain, a sound out of place. First he thought it was thunder, but then it came again. Steady, deliberate, a knock against his iron door. The dragon stilled. No human dared climb this mountain. No beast could stand on the cliff where his door was set. The knock came again, softer than thunder, but sharper than any wind. He rose, slowly, his claws scraping stone as he moved deeper through the tunnels carved long ago by his fire. Each step echoed heavy and final, and the knock sounded once more. He came to the door forged from iron veins, pulled out of the mountain with his own strength, thick enough to withstand a siege of men, and yet now someone dared to strike against it. With fragile knuckles, the dragon lowered his head close to the door. His nostrils flared, smelling rain-wet earth and something else, the sharp, bitter scent of fear. He spoke, his voice deep and rumbling through the stone. Who canost, cased for a long moment. Only rain answered. Then a weak voice broke through, muffled, trembling. Please, please, we need shelter. The dragon blinked once, then twice. A human voice, soft and desperate, and behind it another sound, smaller, weaker, a child's whimper. He had sworn never again to answer the cries of men, never again to let their weakness become his burden. He had sworn to let the world burn, if it wished to burn. But the knock came again, and the voice cracked, this time soaked in tears. I beg you, we will die out here. The dragon's claws scraped against the iron as he hesitated. His memory burned with images of men raising spears against his kin of hunters, marching under banners stained with dragon blood. Yet the storm raged harder, and the thin cry of the child pierced deeper than thunder. He growled low, the sound like rolling earth, and slowly unlatched the door. Iron groaned as it shifted open. Rain swept in, cold and stinging, and in the doorway stood a woman, her clothes torn and heavy with water, her face pale, her eyes wide with exhaustion. In her arms she clutched a small boy, no more than 5 winters old. The boy's head rested against her shoulder, his face half hidden, but his small hand clung to her dress. For a moment the dragon said nothing. He simply stared, and the woman stared back, fear shining clear, even as she tried to stand tall before him. Her lips trembled, but she spoke. We have nowhere else to go behind them. The storm roared, but the dragon's gaze was not on the storm he studied. The woman, she was thin, her cheeks hollow, her steps unsteady. She had traveled far. The child was weaker, his breath shallow, his skin pale, like candle wax. The dragon lowered his head closer, his golden eye filling the doorway, and the woman flinched, but did not step back. She whispered, something is hunting us, please. If you have any mercy, let us stay until it passes. The dragon felt an old fire stir in his chest. Mercy was not a word dragons cherished, yet there was something in the child's small hand clutching at life, something in the woman's voice that carried not just fear, but fierce determination. He could smell her desperation, but also her strength. She would not have knocked on a dragon's door unless death itself was behind. Her stillest voice rumbled low. You do not know who I am, woman. If you did, you would run even from my shadow. Her eyes lifted to his, though her knees trembled. She did not look away. I know what you are, and I am still here, because out there is worse. The dragon drew back slightly. The storm wind howled around them, carrying a scent sharp and foul, not of man, not of beast, but something alien to the mountain, something that made even the dragon's scales prickle with unease. His golden eyes narrowed. At the darkness beyond her, the woman's breath came fast. She whispered, they burned our village. We ran, but they followed. I thought the mountains would hide us, but they never stop hunting. The boy stirred and opened his eyes just for a moment. His small gaze locked on the dragon instead of fear. The dragon saw Only wonder, the boy whispered softly, almost too weak to hear. Are you a monster? The dragon did not answer, for the word cut deeper than he expected. Instead, he turned and stepped back. Into his lair, the woman hesitated only for a heartbeat, then carried her son through the door. The iron closed behind them with a thunderous sound, shutting out the storm. The tunnels glowed faintly with the reflection of molten stone far below, casting shadows that flickered across walls lined with jagged rock. The woman gasped at the vastness of the place, but her steps faltered. When she realized how deep she had walked into the mouth of a legend, the dragon settled his massive body upon a ledge. His wings folding close, his gaze fixed upon her, he said, quietly, though his voice still shook the walls, "You think I will protect youth?" Woman clutched her child closer and whispered, "I only hope you will not kill us." The dragon let out a sound, half laugh, half growl, smoke curling from his nostrils. "Foolish woman, if I wished you dead, you would already be ash." But as he said it, the faint foul scent carried in again. Through cracks in the stone, a reminder of what hunted them outside. His eyes sharpened. He asked, "What pursues you?" She shook her head as tears welled. They came from the sky, metal beasts with claws. They tore through stone walls like they were paper. They fed on the living. They are not men, they are something worse. The dragon stilled his mind, reaching back through centuries to wars fought long before men built cities. He had heard whispers of such hunters long ago, but he had thought them gone. The child shifted again, whispering softly, "I'm cold," for reasons he could not name. The dragon lowered one claw and with delicate care struck sparks against the stone until a small flame caught and grew, casting warmth. The woman stared in shock at the gesture, then whispered, "Thank you." The dragon's eyes narrowed. He told himself it was nothing, only fire, only instinct, but deep inside he knew something had shifted. The vow of silence he had held for centuries cracked at the knock of a desperate woman and her child in the shadow. Outside was still waiting. The storm raged on. But inside the mountain the air grew heavy with silence. The dragon's gaze moved once more to the door, because in the distance, beyond rain and thunder, he could hear it scratching against the predators. Had found them. The storm did not end with the night. It rolled over the mountains like a great beast, unwilling to release its grip. Thunder growled through the valleys, and lightning cut jagged scars across the black sky inside the hollow of the mountain. The dragon did not rest. His golden eyes burned in the shadows, watching the human woman and her child as they huddled near the small flame he had allowed to live. The woman whispered soft words to the boy, rocking him gently, though her own body trembled with exhaustion. She had not slept in days. Her eyes were hollow, yet fierce. Her arms clung to the boy as if nothing in the world could pry him from her grasp. The child stirred sometimes, coughing softly, sometimes asking questions in a voice almost too faint to hear. The dragon heard every sound, his ears sharper than steel, every breath, every heartbeat. But more than that, he smelled the fear. It clung to them, thick and bitter. It mixed with the foul scent that drifted from outside the mountain, the scent of the hunters. He rose slowly, the sound of his claws against stone echoing through the cavern. The woman's eyes snapped open at once. She clutched her boy tighter as the dragon moved toward the iron door. His wings brushed against the walls, sending dust falling like ash. The child whispered, "Is he leaving?" The dragon paused, his head turning, his eyes like burning suns upon them. And the woman hushed her son. She did not know what the dragon would do, but her heart told her this creature, though terrifying, had not killed them when he could have. The dragon lowered his head close to the door. He could hear it now, soft but sharp, scraping along the outer stone, not claws like any beast he knew, but metal and chitin sliding against rock. His nostrils flared, taking in the stench of blood and iron, something alien, something built for the hunt. He spoke without turning. "You led them here." The woman's voice broke into panic. "I did not mean to. They follow us no matter where we go. They never stop." His growl rumbled deep and low, shaking the stones. Dust rained from the ceiling. The boy whimpered, pressing his face into his mother's shoulder. The dragon turned, his gaze upon them once more, golden and merciless, and yet within it was a flicker of something Old, a memory of battlefields when men and dragons once fought side by side against shadows not unlike these, he asked. What are they? The woman's lips trembled. She shook her head. I do not know. They came from the sky. Their ships burn the ground there. Hunters tear apart the living we ran, but everywhere they are there, they are always behind. Us, the boy whispered softly, they smell like fire and blood. The dragon tilted his head, his nostrils widening again. The child was right. The scent was not only blood and steel, but fire, stolen fire. Not true flame, but something twisted, something meant to burn without life. The dragon's scales rippled uneasily. Stepped back from the door, the woman let out a shaky breath, as if released from a cage. But her relief was brief, because the dragon spoke again. His voice cold like iron. You will not live long if they have your scent. Her eyes filled with despair. I know, but I could not let my child die. Without trying, she pulled the boy closer, and her words broke into tears. I would face 1,000 monsters if it meant. He might live one more Datha. The dragon stared in silence, her words striking like arrows. Though he tried to let them fall harmlessly against his armor, yet something inside shifted again, for he remembered once long ago. His own kin hunted to the last mothers clutching eggs, as men with spears closed in, fathers falling with roars of defiance that shook mountains. He had survived by choosing solitude, but survival was not the same as living. The scraping sound outside grew louder. Then it stopped, silence pressed heavy, then a hiss low and cruel carried through the stone. The dragons. Head lifted, he knew now they were not simple beasts. They were thinking predators, and they had tracked the woman and child to his mountain. He let out a snarl so fierce the very walls trembled. The fire near the woman flickered as if afraid. The boy whispered, will you fight them? The dragon did not answer, his wings unfurled, stretching wide, his body filling the cavern with terrible majesty. He turned toward the door claws, carving lines in stone, his chest swelled with ancient fire he had not unleashed in centuries. The air grew hot. The woman shielded her son as the dragon roared. The roar split. The storm lightning answered. Thunder bowed. Sound shook down snow from the peaks outside. In that moment, everything on the mountain knew. The dragon no longer slept. From the darkness came the answering cry, a screech that was not of this earth, shrill, cutting through rain and rock. The hunters had heard him, and they were not afraid. The dragon slammed his body against the iron door. It swung open with a groan. The storm rushed in, carrying the scent of the enemy. The woman cried out, clutching her son tighter as wind and rain swept over them. The dragon stepped out onto the cliff, the storm lashing against his scales. His wings spread wide. Like black sails against the sky below him, shadows moved, shapes crawling across rock walls, their bodies slick with armor, their limbs jointed like blades, their eyes burning with cold, unnatural light. They hissed and clicked, their voices carrying words he should not have understood yet. Somehow he did pray, shelter here, pray, and fire, fire must die. The dragon's chest glowed, brighter flames building. He did not care if they spoke. He did not care what they called themselves. They had dared scratch against his mountain. They had dared chase a child to his door. He opened his jaws and fire roared forth. A night lit with blazing gold rain turned to steam as the flames struck the cliff face. Hunters shrieked as fire consumed them there. Bodies twisted in unnatural motion, but even as they burned, more crawled forward, their claws sinking into stone, their eyes unblinking, their hisses rising together like a song of hunger. The dragon reared back, roaring again, his fire lighting the state. Storm itself for miles, lightning split the sky. Thunder answered. But even through the flames, saw them still moving, still climbing. Scorched but not destroyed inside the lair, the woman fell to her knees, holding her boy, who stared wide-eyed. The door, his small voice trembled but held awe. He is fighting for us. The dragon's wings beat once, sending a shockwave of wind that toppled trees in the valley below. His claws tore at the rock, ripping hunters apart. He fought like the wars of old, like the last of his kind who would not yield, but the predators did not retreat. They swarmed faster, their screeches echoing up the cliff. One raised its head higher than the rest, its armored shell glowing faintly with stolen fire, and in a voice broken but sharp, it spoke again in words the dragon should not know. We will come for the humans and for youth. Dragon froze for a breath, his flames flickering, his mind reeled at the sound, not because of the threat, but because of the language. The voice spoke in the tongue of men. How could such monsters speak the words of humanity? His rage boiled hotter. He crushed the creature in his claws, grinding it against the stone until nothing remained but ash, yet the words echoed in his skull. Like poison, we will come for the humans and for you. He turned his eyes back toward the lair. The woman stared at him from the shadows, holding her son. Her fear plain, her trust uncertain, but in her gaze there was also a silent question. Will you let us die? The dragon's heart thundered louder than the storm. He had sworn never again to care for men, never again to fight for anyone but himself. Yet the hunters were here. The woman and child had brought them to his mountain, and now he had a choice: drive them away and let fate consume them, or stand against the darkness, that even his fire might not burn away. The scraping sounds outside grew louder. More hunters crawling through the storm. His claws flexed. Fire built once more inside his chest. His eyes narrowed, golden and fierce. The dragon had been silent for centuries, but tonight the world would remember. His roar clung to the mountain like a heavy cloak. The storm had not moved on, but settled deeper over the peaks. Rain poured down in endless sheets, and thunder rolled in steady rhythm like the beating of a war drum. The dragon stood at the cliff, his scales glistening, wet his wings, spread wide, his chest burning with fire that he had not called forth in centuries below him. The hunters crawled over the rocks, their bodies shining dark and wet with armor that seemed to drink the rain instead of wash it. Away inside the hollow of the mountain, the woman held her child close. She had pressed herself into the corner of the cavern, her eyes wide. Fixed on the open door, she could hear the roars of the dragon and the screeches of the hunters. Every sound struck her chest like a hammer. The boy whispered softly, his words almost lost against the storm, as he winning. She wanted to answer, but she could not. Her throat was dry. Her heart raced faster than the storm. She only tightened her grip on the child and whispered, "Pray." The dragon reared back, his head high, his chest glowing brighter until fire burst from his throat. A river of flame that split the night, burning away hunters and turning stone black beneath the heat. The smell of scorched flesh and metal filled the air. Rain turned to steam. Clouds rose from the cliff in thick sheets, and still the hunters. How came they? Hissed and clattered, their limbs scraping against stone. They leapt from rock to rock, moving with a speed no beast of earth should hold. Their eyes glowed with unnatural light, blue, white, red, all burning, all fixed on him. They swarmed like ants, unending. Dragon roared again, the sound carrying through valleys far beyond the mountain. For a moment, even the storm seemed to still at the force of his voice. He struck down with his claws, crushing 2, 3, 4 at once, their bodies cracking like glass. Yet their brethren climbed over the dead unfazed, without fear. From the shadows, one larger than the rest moved forward, its armor ridged with cruel spines, its limbs longer, sharper. It raised its head, and from its throat came sound, not screech, but words again, words in the tongue of men, broken and warped, but clear. You are fire, you are prey. Your end is near. The dragon's eyes narrowed, his rage burned hotter than his flames. The words of men spoken by this creature struck at him like blades. He had seen men once hunted by his kin long ago, but now he saw something worse, something that had taken man's language, twisted it into mockery. He leaped forward, wings snapping wide. He crashed down upon the rock. His claws sank into the ground, sending cracks running like rivers. Lightning struck the peaks. Above, casting his body in silver light, he opened his jaws and poured fire upon the greater beast. Flames swallowed it whole, and for a moment its body burned bright, its limbs twisting as if in agony. Yet when the fire faded, it still moved. Its armor blackened, cracked but not destroyed. It rose again, its eyes glowing brighter. The dragon bared his teeth, smoke curling from his nostrils. He had not faced such resistance since the wars of old, when men and dragons together fought shadows that poured from the stars. His heart beat harder, his muscles coiled, his mind sharp with battle. Once Marines sighed the cavern. The boy whispered again, his voice filled with awe. He is not losing. The woman's heart stirred, but she dared not believe hope was dangerous. Hope could break harder than fear. She pressed her lips against her child's hair and prayed silently that the beast outside was not their final doom. The hunters swarmed higher, climbing closer to the mouth of the lair. Their claws scraped the stone like knives against glass. The dragon swung his tail wide, smashing them from the cliff, their bodies falling into the abyss below. but more replaced them. They never ceased, never tired. One leapt high to high, its limbs spread wide, its claws stretched toward the entrance. The dragon snapped his head and caught it between his teeth with a single jerk. He tore it apart and spat the pieces into the storm. Yet even then more crawled over the remains with mindless hunger. The greater beast hissed again, its voice stronger, louder. "We will feed, we will break, we will end fire and flesh." The dragon's fire answered, not words, only flame. He poured it upon them until the night glowed red, until even the storm seemed to shy away, steam rising in pillars around him. He fought with tooth, claw, fire, and wing, and still they came. But the hunters made a mistake in their hunger. They pressed too close to the lair. The dragon's eyes flicked back, and for the first time saw them climbing toward the door, toward the woman and child. Rage unlike any he had felt in centuries filled him, not just battle rage, but something sharper, something deeper, a vow unspoken. No creature, no thing would pass him and touch the child. He threw himself against the cliff, his wings smashing into stone, his claws ripping bodies apart. He fought, not as a beast, not as prey, but as a king of fire returned to war. Lightning struck again, illuminating his body, blood of hunters dripping from his scales, smoke rising from his teeth. He roared into the storm, daring the night itself to challenge him. The greater beast lunged, meeting him claw against claw, its limbs stronger than steel, its mouth filled with jagged teeth. Struck his chest, cutting deep across scales. For the first time in centuries, blood of a dragon spilled into the storm. The woman gasped as she saw it dark against the fire. The boy cried out. No, the dragon did not fall. He snapped his jaws around the creature's shoulder. Fire burst from between his teeth, and with a violent twist, he tore the limb free. The beast shrieked, a sound that shook the mountains, but it did not die. It writhed, its remaining limbs slashing at him, cutting deep across wing and side. Pain seared through him, yet he fought harder. His claws sank into its chest. He forced it back inch by inch toward the cliff edge. Rain hissed upon his scales, blood mixed with water streaming down, but his fire did not dim. He pushed harder. The creature shrieked louder. Then with one last roar he drove his claws through its chest, and flames erupted from his jaws, burning it from the inside until it fell from the cliff, its body breaking upon the rocks far below. Hunters screeched in unison, a sound of fury and despair. They scattered, retreating into the darkness, their glowing eyes vanishing into storm. The dragon stood bleeding, his chest rising heavy, his wings torn but unbroken, his eyes still burning with fire inside. The cavern, the woman wept silently, clutching her son. The boy whispered in wonder, "He saved us." The dragon turned his head, his golden eyes fixed on them, his body soaked in rain, blood, and smoke. He did not speak. He did not need to, for the silence that followed said more than words could. Yet in the distance beyond the storm, he heard it, the sound of many voices, many hunters, not gone, not defeated, but gathering. And then in the whisper of the wind, carried across the peaks, came words again in the tongue of men, not from one throat, but many. We will come for the humans. We will come for the fire, we will come for. Youth Dragon's eyes narrowed, his body tense. Though he bled, though he burned, he knew this night was not the end. It was only the beginning. Storm was still heavy when morning came. Gray light broke over the peaks, but the sky was no clearer. The dragon sat at the cliff, his body still and vast. His wounds raw and bleeding, steam rose from his scales. Each time the rain struck the cuts, the world around him stank of burned flesh and broken stone. But his eyes did not close. He had not slept. Since the fight he would not, while danger still walked. Behind him the woman crept from the cavern, her child held tight against her. She had wrapped him in the remains of her cloak, trying to keep the mountain cold from his bones. She paused as she saw the dragon's blood, black and thick, running in streams across the rock. Her breath caught in her throat, for though the creature was vast and terrible, he had fought for them, and he had bled for them. She whispered, "You are hurt." The dragon's golden eyes turned slowly toward her, his gaze sharp but heavy like fire buried under ash. He rumbled, "Lo, no wound breaks me." The boy stirred in her arms, peering out at the massive shape, his small voice soft. "Are you going to die?" The dragon looked at him long. The words stung more than claws, but he did not show it. He only turned his head back toward the storm and spoke not today. The woman stepped closer. Though fear still clung to her every breath, she placed the boy down upon a flat stone and tore strips from her dress. She dipped them into the rainwater and pressed them against the dragon's bleeding side. The cloth was small, almost laughably small against the wound, but she worked anyway, her hands steady, though her lips trembled. The dragon growled low, "You waste your strength?" She shook her head without looking up. "I cannot do nothing, not after what you did for us." The boy whispered to himself, "He is our guardian." The dragon's chest rumbled deep at those words. Not anger, not agreement, something else, something he had not felt in centuries. He lowered his head until his eye filled the space where mother and child stood. He could see the boy's tiny hand pressing against his scale, warm and fragile. He remembered the days when men had stood beside his kind, not as prey, not as hunters, but as allies. Banners, flying dragons, and humans roaring together against an enemy that came from the stars. Those days had burned away with betrayal and greed, but the memory had never left his bones. The woman spoke, then her voice soft yet strong. "Long ago my grandmother told me stories. She said dragons once protected us. She said they were the fire of the world, and we prayed they would return when darkness came." The dragon's jaw tightened. Her words struck deeper than he wished. He had heard the same prayers long ago, whispered on battlefields, sung at night when men feared what lurked in shadows. He had seen the prayers turn to fear, turn to hatred, until the same voices prayed for his death. He rumbled harshly, "Prayers turned to spears, prayers turned to lies." The woman flinched but did not move away, her hands still pressing the cloth against his wounds. She whispered, "That may be true, but tonight you saved us, and I will not forget." The boy looked up at him with eyes wide, bright with trust. The dragon could not hold that gaze long. He turned back to the storm, silent. Hours passed. The hunters did not return, but their voices carried on the wind distant yet clear promises of hunger, threats of fire and blood. The dragon listened, his tail twitching, his wings shifting though broken, his chest burned with readiness. The woman tried to rest, but her mind would not let her. Her son lay across her lap, asleep at last, his breathing shallow but steady. She looked out at the dragon and saw not only a beast, not only fire and claws. She saw a creature who chose to fight when he could have turned away. When the boy stirred awake, he sat up looking at the dragon and whispered, "Why do you hide here if you are so strong? Why do you live alone?" The dragon's head turned slow, his golden eyes catching the boy's question like a hook. He rumbled, "Because once I fought for your kind, and when the war was done, your kind hunted mine. Until I was the last." The boy's small face fell. "That is sad." The dragon's eyes darkened deeper than the storm. "It is truth." The woman lowered her gaze, guilt heavy in her chest. Though she had never lifted a spear, she carried the weight of what men had done. Her voice was quiet. "We cannot change the past, but maybe we can change what comes now." The dragon gave no answer, but deep in his chest the words stirred. Fire in a place he thought long. Cold night came again, and with it silence too. Deep, too sharp. The dragon stood from his rest, blood still leaking from his wounds, but his body strong. He walked to the cliff and looked out, his senses stretching across the valley. He felt them moving, not near, but gathering more than before, more than he had seen in centuries. The woman rose at his side, clutching her son. She asked, "Are they coming back?" The dragon nodded, slow, his voice low. "Yes, and they bring more fear." Crossed her face. She whispered, "Then we are lost." The dragon turned his head, his eye glowing fierce against the dark. "No, not while I stand." The boy's small voice lifted again. "You promise?" The dragon lowered his head close, so close his hot breath washed over them. He spoke only one word. "Yes." The night stretched heavy, each moment slow. The woman sat with her son, her mind racing. She thought of her village burning. She thought of screams cut short. She thought of the hunters who would not stop, and she thought of this dragon who had sworn nothing yet stood between them and death. When dawn's first light came, it broke through a torn sky, showing the scars of battle across the mountain. Smoke still rose from the cliff, blood still dark upon the stones. The dragon sat upon his ledge like a statue of war, his wings folded close, his eyes never closing. The boy walked forward his small steps, Echoing against the stone, he placed a hand against the dragon's claw, his voice soft but strong. "We believe in you." The dragon looked down at the child, and for the first time in centuries his heart stirred, not with rage, not with sorrow, but with something far more dangerous. He felt the pull of an oath unspoken. He had hidden for too long, he had sworn never again to fight for men, but the hunters had come. The woman and child had knocked at his door, and something old, something fierce, rose in him like fire, breaking free from stone. He rumbled deep, his voice filling the cavern heavy with promise. "I will keep you safe." The woman's breath caught the boy. Smiled wide, the dragon turned his gaze back to the storm, and beyond the peaks he saw the shapes gathering dark. Against the light, a swarm rising, an army forming. War was coming, and this time he would not turn away for the first time in centuries. The last dragon swore an oath, and the mountains trembled with it. The morning was gray, but the sky did not stay quiet for long. The storm had passed, yet the mountain air held no peace. The dragon sat at the cliff, his body still, but his eyes burning golden. He had not slept, he would not, while the hunters gathered. He could feel them beyond the peaks, crawling in shadows, whispering their hunger with voices that echoed through the wind. The woman stood near the cavern mouth, her son clutching. Her dress, her eyes wide as she watched the horizon. The boy pointed. With his small hand, his voice soft, but filled with fear, Mother looked. The woman lifted her gaze, and her heart froze, and the sky black shapes moved against the clouds, not birds, not storms, ships of the hunters' dark metal gliding silent across. The morning, their edges sharp, their bodies glowing with cruel light, they spread wide, blotting out the sun until the valley fell into shadow. Dragon rose, his wings stretching his scales, catching what light remained. The sight of the ship stirred. Something long buried deep in his chest, memory of battles fought under burning skies, memory of men and dragons standing together against fire from above. His jaw tightened, his claws carved the stone beneath him. The hunters had come in force. The woman whispered, "They are too many." The dragon's voice rumbled low and harsh. "Let them come." The first of the ships broke apart in the sky, doors opening from their bellies. Hunters poured out in swarms. Their limbs spread wide, their claws catching. The wind, they fell like a storm of blades descending toward the mountain, their screeches carried like knives across the valley. Dragon launched from the cliff, his wings beating once, twice the force, shook trees from the ground and shattered. Stone, he rose into the sky, his roar answering the swarm. Lightning lit the clouds. Thunder followed, but his voice was louder. Fire burst from his throat, a river of gold and red that struck the falling hunters and burned them from the air. Their bodies fell smoking into the valley, but more came, more always came. The woman ran deeper into the cavern, holding her son close, the child's eyes wide as he whispered, "He is the sky on fire." The hunters closed around the dragon, their bodies circling fast. Claws slashing, jaws snapping, he fought with fire and fang, ripping them apart. Flames lit the morning, turning the sky to gold. Yet for every one that fell, another replaced it. His wings tore through them, his tail smashed them from the air. But they swarmed tighter, their shrieks rising, until it seemed the air itself screamed below. The mountain shook as the ships drew nearer, their lights blazing. Against the stone, the woman shielded her son as shadows of the vessels passed overhead. The ground quaked under their weight, rocks tumbled from cliffs and rivers churned with falling ash. She pressed her forehead to her child's hair, whispering over and over, hold on above." The dragon fought on his scales, cut his wings, torn blood dripping down his body, but his fire burned hotter with every strike. The hunters hissed words. Again, words in the tongue of men. Fire will fall, fire will die, flesh will end. He roared his answer, flame bursting across the sky, yet still they pressed closer. Claws sinking into his wings, tearing at his sides, he bit one in half another. Crushed in his jaws, but pain lanced through him stronger than before, his body heavy with wounds, his fire thinning. The ships fired, great beams of searing light split. The air striking the cliff stone exploded, dust rained down into the valley. The woman screamed as boulders fell near the cavern mouth. She shielded her son with her body. The boy cried, but did not let go of her dress. The dragon saw, and rage flared. Brighter than pain, he dove through the swarm, his body a spear of flame. He struck one ship with his full weight claws. Ripping into metal wings, smashing against steel, he poured fire into its body until the vessel cracked and burst in a storm of flame. The explosion lit the sky, throwing hunters in every direction. The mountain shook as debris rained down. The woman saw the fireball and cried out, not in fear, but in awe. He had brought down a ship with his own fury. The boy shouted, "He can win! He can win!" But even as the ship fell, more replaced it, more vessels sliding through the clouds, darker, larger. Their weapons glowing with cruel power. The dragon beat his wings, rising again, his body blackened with blood and smoke, his breath heavy. He fought with every shred of strength, but his eyes narrowed sharp. He knew this was only the beginning. As he turned toward the cavern, his gaze caught something strange deep within his lair. On the walls, carved into stone long ago, a banner hung. Tattered and forgotten, the woman had stumbled across it while hiding with her son. It was old, woven of threads, now faded, but the symbol still clear, a human hand. Clasped with a dragon's claw surrounded by fire, she touched it with trembling fingers. Her heart struck by its meaning. She called out to the dragon, her voice carried by the wind. "This is not the first time you fought for us. You were with us once before." The dragon's eyes locked on the banner. Memory flashed sharper than pain he saw. Battlefields, men raising banners like that one, dragons roaring, fire together against the dark. He had sworn never again, but the banner was proof that not all men had betrayed. Some had stood beside them, some had bled beside them. His fire rose again. Stronger, his roar shook the valley. He fought not only with rage, but with memory, with oath, with the faint, fragile trust of a woman and her child below. He tore through hunters, burned through another ship. The sky itself seemed aflame, but the enemy was not done. From the largest ship above the clouds, something emerged, larger than any hunter, larger than any beast. A war beast forged of metal and flesh, its body thick with armor, its limbs ending in cannons and claws, its eyes burning red. It dropped from the sky, striking the mountain with force that shook the world. The hunters shrieked in triumph, their voices echoing through the valley. The woman clutched her son as the ground split, rocks tumbling, dust choking the air. The boy whispered, "Mother." What his other voice shook. It is death. A dragon landed upon the cliff, his body battered, his wings torn, his fire dim. But his eyes never brighter. He stared at the war beast, his chest burning with fury. This was no hunter. This was a creation built for one purpose, the slaying of dragons. The beast roared, its voice a sound of machines and monsters. It raised its claws, glowing with fire, not true fire, but stolen flame. It stepped forward, shaking the earth, hunters swarming around its feet. The dragon bared his teeth, his blood dripping into the stone, his body trembling with wounds, yet he spread his wings once more. The woman's voice carried to him, soft but fierce. "We're not alone. We believe in youth," boy cried out to his small voice, high. "We will fight with youth." Dragon lowered his head, his gaze burning. He spoke, his voice rolling like thunder. Then let them come. The war beast roared and charged. The mountains shook, the hunters screamed, the sky burned with light. The dragon leapt to meet it, fire bursting from his jaws. The clash split the air, and the valley trembled under the force of ancient power against unending hunger. The battle of sky and mountain had only just begun. Mountain shook when the war beast struck its claws, dug into the rock, its body towering over the cliff. It was larger than any predator the woman had seen, its armor black as night, its limbs thick with weapons that glowed with burning red light. The dragon stood before it, his chest heaving, his wings torn, his scales marked with blood, but his eyes blazed with golden fire. The boy clung to his mother's dress, watching with wide eyes, whispering softly, "He can do it. He can win." The beast roared, its sound not like an animal, but like thunder mixed with metal. It swung one great claw, and the dragon leapt to meet it there. Collision split, the air stone cracked under the force. Hunters scattered away, screeching as sparks and flames filled the sky. The dragon bit down with his jaws, sinking his teeth into the creature's shoulder. Fire poured into its armor, but the beast did not fall. It twisted its body and slammed its other limb into the dragon's side. The impact echoed through the mountain. The dragon roared in pain, his wings faltering. But he held on his claws, Tearing through black armor, the woman pulled her son back into the cavern as pieces of stone. Rained down dust, choking the air. The sound of battle shook the walls. She could feel the heartbeat of the mountain itself quivering. She whispered over and over, "Hold on, hold on." The beast reared back one of its cannons. Glowing bright before the dragon could move, a beam of burning energy cut across his wing. The sound was sharp. Like fire splitting through flesh, the dragon cried. Out his massive body, twisting, his left wing shattered, bone and scale tore away. He crashed onto the stone, his body shaking the cliff with his weight. The woman gasped, her heart frozen. The boy cried out. No! Hunters screeched louder, swarming closer. As the dragon struggled to rise, blood poured from his wings, steam hissing as rain struck at his breath. Came hard fire flickering weakly between his jaws. The beast moved forward, its red eyes burning with hunger. It raised its claw to strike again, but the dragon rose, his body trembling, his left wing hanging useless. His golden eyes fierce with unbroken fury, he roared louder than before, the sound shaking. The storm itself, fire burst from his chest, burning a path through the hunters. They shrieked and scattered, but still they came crawling over one another to reach him. The war beast swung down, its claw smashing against the dragon's chest. He was driven back. Stone cracked beneath his body, his claws scraped as he tried to hold his ground. His fire burst again, striking the beast's head. Flames poured into its eyes, but the creature still moved, its armor glowing red under the heat. It swung again, striking the dragon's side. He roared in pain.
Ow, but
refused to fall. The woman clutched her son, pulling him deeper into the cavern. She could not look, but she could not look away. The boy pressed his face against her, whispering softly, "He is fighting for us. He will not stop there." Dragon lunged forward again, his claws ripping into the beast's chest. Sparks flew, metal tore. He roared, pouring fire into the wound. The creature shrieked, its machine voice breaking, but even as flames consumed part of its body, it slammed its limb into the dragon's broken wing. Pain exploded through him. He staggered, blood streaming across his scales. But his eyes did not dim. The hunters swarmed toward the cavern, now their claws scraping against stone. The woman grabbed a broken spear left behind from her village. It was dull, weak against the armored monsters, but she raised it anyway, standing before her son, her body shaking. But her will unbroken, the first hunter crawled inside, hissing, its eyes burning with blue light. She stabbed forward, the spear scraping against its armor. She pushed again, screaming, the point driving between plates. The creature screeched, twisting. She shoved harder until it fell back into the dark. Her breath came hard, her arm shaking, but she stood firm. More shadows moving outside. Her son clutched her hand, whispering softly, "We are not afraid." The dragon heard the hiss of hunters moving toward the cavern. He turned his head, his heart pounding. He would not let them pass. He struck with his tail, sweeping dozens from the cliff. His fire burst again, forcing the swarm back, but his strength faded, his body heavy, his breath ragged. The war beast rose higher, though part of its chest still burned. It had not fallen. It lifted its cannon again, light building brighter. The dragon braced his claws. Sinking deep into stone, he roared, and when the beam fired, he moved not back but forward. He met the blast with his body, fire bursting from his chest. His flame clashed with the beam. The two forces struck the sky, exploding in blinding light. The mountain shook, dust and stone fell. The cavern trembled around the woman and child when the light faded. The dragon staggered, his scales, blackened smoke rising from his chest. His broken wing dragged behind him, his breath shallow, but he stood, his eyes still burning. The beast moved to half its face, melted, its chest torn open, its roar broken. But still alive, it raised its claws again, stepping forward. The dragon's knees trembled. He could feel his strength draining, his fire almost gone. But in the cavern he heard the boy's voice, soft yet clear. "Don't give up, please." The dragon's heart struck like a hammer. The words filled him deeper than fire. He remembered the boy's eyes, the woman's hands pressing cloth against his wounds, the banner upon his wall, the battles long ago. When dragons had fought with men, he could not fall, not yet, not while hope still lived. He surged forward with the last of his strength, his claws driving into the beast's chest. He pushed with all his weight. Fire burst from him, one final blaze brighter than the sun flames poured into the creature. Its armor cracking, its roar breaking, it thrashed against him, but he held on, forcing the fire deeper until at last the beast collapsed, its body exploding into pieces that rained across the mountain. Hunters shrieked and scattered the explosion. Lit the sky like dawn, the dragon fell back, his chest heaving, his broken wing dragging, his body shaking. He collapsed onto the stone blood. Streaming, his fire gone, his eyes heavy but still glowing faint, the woman ran to him, pulling her son with her. She stopped at his side, her eyes wide with sorrow and awe. She whispered, "You saved us. You saved us." All the dragon looked at her, his breath shallow, his voice rumbling low, broken but not beaten. The boy touched his claw, his small hand trembling. "You are our guardian." The dragon closed his eyes, not in death but in weariness, his wounds deep, his strength nearly gone, but in his chest burned something. Knew not only fire but a bond forged in battle, forged in trust. Far above, the storm cleared the ships. Still hung in the sky, larger vessels gathering, the threat not ended, but waiting. The woman saw them, her heart heavy. She knew the war was not over. She knew more death would come. The dragon opened his eyes once more, his voice a whisper like thunder. "Before the storm, the end has not yet come. They will return with greater fire." The woman held her son close, her voice steady, but filled with fear. "Then what do we do?" The dragon's gaze burned faint but fierce. "You do not hide. You rise." He lowered his head, his body trembling, his wing broken, but his spirit unbroken. He had fought and bled, but he would fight again. Because though his body was failing, he had found something greater than solitude. He had found purpose, and he would not let it die far. Above, the largest ship descended through the clouds, shadows stretching across the valley. The hunters' voices carried once more, we will come for the humans. We will come for the fire. We will come for Youth Dragon's golden eyes." Narrowed, though his body lay broken, his fire stirred again. He whispered, "Then come and burn with Mitha." Valley lay in silence after the fall of the war beast, its body broken and scattered across the cliffs. Smoke rising from burning pieces. The storm had cleared, but the air was heavy with ash and blood. The dragon lay upon the stone. His body scarred, his left wing ruined, his scales cracked, his breath shallow. Yet his eyes glowed faint like embers that would not die. The woman knelt beside him, pressing her hands against his wounds, though she knew they were too deep for her to heal. The boy sat close, holding one of the dragon's claws, with both his small hands whispering, please stay above the sky." Darkened once more, the shadow of a greater ship stretched across the mountain, larger than all the others, its sides covered in glowing lines, its engines rumbling like thunder. It did not move fast, it moved with the weight of certainty, like a storm that knew no one could escape. The hunters' voices echoed again, not screeches now, but words clear and sharp. "Fire is broken. Fire will end. The humans will kneel." Dragon turned his gaze to the sky, his body heavy, but his spirit burning. He tried to rise. His claws dug into the stone, but his legs trembled, his broken wing dragged, and he fell again. The woman pressed against his side, her voice fierce yet shaking. "You cannot fight them like this," he rumbled low. "I cannot fall while you stand beside me." The boy shook his head, tears running down his cheeks. "You can't. You'll die." The dragon looked at him, his voice a whisper. "Then so be it, if that is the price." Great ship opened its belly, and from it descended not a swarm but one figure, tall and thin, its body like black glass glowing with crimson veins, its face hidden behind a mask shaped like a skull, its steps slow, its presence heavy. The hunters did not move. They knelt in the air around it, their voices chanting one word again and again, "Harrower, Harrower." Harrower. The woman felt her blood freeze. This was no common hunter, this was their master. Dragon's body shuddered, but he raised his head, his golden eyes burning against the shadow. "You are the one who commands the carrion," the figure spoke, voice deep and hollow like the mountain itself cracking. "We are hunger, we are silence, we are the end of fire." The dragon growled low, "Fire does not end while breath remains." The harrower lifted one hand, a spear of dark energy forming in its grasp. pointed at the dragonfire, broken wing, broken heart, broken yield, and we may leave the humans to the dirt. Woman rose, standing before the dragon, her son, clutching her leg. She shouted, her voice shaking but strong. He is not broken. He saved us. He saved all of us, and we will not kneel. The harrower tilted its head. The sound it made was neither laugh nor growl, but something between pitiful. The dragon stirred at her words, strength flickering through him. He remembered the banner. He remembered the battles long ago. His claws dug deeper into the stone. He forced himself to rise one limb at a time, his body bleeding, his wing dragging. But he stood, he roared, not with fire, but with defiance. The sound shook. The hunters from the sky, they scattered. Screaming, the harrower raised its spear. The dragon leapt, though broken his body a wall of scale and claw. He struck the figure, but the weapon met him, light and shadow clashing the mountain. Split beneath their weight, the valley shook. The woman grabbed her son, pulling him back as the battle lit the sky. The dragon clawed the harrower's chest. Sparks flew, but no blood came. The figure struck with its spear, driving deep into the dragon's side. He roared in pain, but struck again, his tail whipping. The figure from the cliff, it floated back, rising, its eyes glowing brighter. Fire is fading. The dragon spread his broken wings, forcing himself higher. His chest burned, his breath weak, but he roared again. Fire flared one last time, bursting from his jaws. Flames, golden and pure, they struck the harrower, burning across its body. The figure screamed for the first time, its voice not calm, but broken. The flames consumed its mask, cracking its black body. The hunters shrieked louder, scattering in chaos. But the fire took everything the dragon had. His chest heaving, his eyes dimming, he fell crashing onto the cliff. The harrower staggered, its body burning, but not gone. It raised its hand again, forming another spear, ready to strike. The woman ran forward. Without thinking, she grabbed the fallen banner from the wall of the cavern, the cloth torn, the threads old, but the symbol clear. She raised it. By her voice carrying across the valley, we will fight, we will stand, we are not afraid. The hunters paused, their voices faltering. The harrower's hand shook, its gaze turned toward the banner, old memory flashing, its chant breaking. The boy broke free of his mother's grasp and ran to the dragon. He placed both hands on the dragon's chest, his voice small but strong. You are not alone. You are our fire, though. Dragon's eyes opened, faint but burning. He felt warmth, not his own, but theirs, flowing through him, not strength of body, but strength of spirit. The fire within him stirred again, though his flesh failed, his heart burned. He rose once more, his body shaking, his voice a whisper, but filled with thunder. Then let us end this. He lunged, his claws glowing with light. Not just his fire, but the bond of human and dragon the harrower struck with. Its spear, the two forces met. The mountains split with the sound. The valley filled with light, brighter than dawn. Fire and shadow collided, exploding across the sky. The woman shielded her son as the blast swept through the cavern, dust and heat rushing. Like a storm, when it cleared, the mountain stood cracked but whole. The hunters were gone. Their screams carried away, the great ship shattered, and the clouds raining black fire across the horizon. Upon the cliff the dragon lay, his body still, his eyes half closed, his breath shallow. The harrower gone, burned into nothing, only ash drifting where it had stood. The woman crawled to the dragon's side, tears on her face. She whispered, "You did it. You saved us." The boy pressed his forehead against the dragon's claw, his voice breaking, "You can't go, please don't go." The dragon looked at them, his golden eyes dim but warm, his voice soft as wind. "I am tired, but my fire is not gone. It burns in you now. Protect it, keep it, and it will never die." Boy cried harder, clutching him, "No, you are our fire, you can't leave." The dragon's eyes closed, his body still yet, as the woman held her son. She saw a glow faint within his chest, not fading, but resting, like embers, waiting for breath. She realized he was not gone, only sleeping, the bond of their fire holding him. She whispered, "Rest, then guardian, rest, until you rise again." The valley lay in silence, but not in despair. The hunters had been broken. Their master destroyed. The banner stood once more, raised high upon the mountain. The boy looked at it through his tears and whispered softly, "He will rise again. When we call, he will rise." And so the story of the reclusive dragon who once hid from the world became the story of the guardian whose fate had changed when a broken mother and her child knocked upon his door. The fire of dragon and human bound together against the endless dark, and though the war was not finished, though shadows would return, hope had been born, and fire would burn forever.